I'm Braxton Smith.
Today we're going to be talking about presidential candidate that's close to everyone's heart, Marco Rubio. First, I'd like to say that this is content of both myself and Braxton Smith, so it's property of both of us. I'm gonna go ahead and let you take the lead on this one because you seem to be fairly motivated and have a lot of knowledge on Marco Rubio and a lot of opinions.
All right, so it's like I was telling you earlier. We're discussing. I know you weren't too excited about talking about this candidate. He's not exactly top of the polls right now, but he's still within striking distance of the presidency. So I still consider him a legitimate possibility for candidacy, and I feel he's worth discussing. So just a quick rundown on who Marco Rubio is. He's only Latino candidate on the GOP. Actually, GOP or DNC. He's the only Latino candidate right now. He's a senator of Florida, and has had strong affiliations with the Tea Party. Tea Party was crazy about him all the way up until I want to say it was like 2013. He had a change on his immigration policy, which we'll be going over later. But yeah, that's a quick rundown on him. I'm just going to go down a whole list of line items of things of particular interest. I was just scrolling through some things I was reading about him on the internet, and everything's sourced. I could put those up, but I'm going to save everyone time and just let you do the research yourself. But some things I found worth noting. It actually starts out really good. I was looking into him, and I was starting to think, well, damn, he might be a legitimate candidate. Like, I might actually give him another look, because starts out, he was looking at the whole climate change. He's given it a second thought, using critical thinking. He's going against a lot of the popular beliefs that's being forced on everyone right now that climate change, well, it was originally global warming, but now it's climate change. And they're saying that it's man-made. He's saying he doubts the possibilities of it, but if any research comes out that's empirical to suggest it, then he'll reassess. But for now, he wants to remove the ban on exporting our oils. So that's something that's holding us back big time, is our ability to export oil and to drill off our own shores this oil. We have the EPA banning us from drilling off our own shores to preserve the shores, but we can still allow these other countries with less standards than our own to drill off in the Gulf of Mexico.
Right.
He also wants to block the EPA's shutdown of a lot of coal power plants that are going across America right now. Okay. There's a lot of most of our power is actually from coal, and EPA is trying to shut it down right now to force us to go over to more expensive renewable resources. And something many people need to understand is that GOPs aren't, they aren't the bad guys from Captain Planet that are like, oh, we must pollute the planet to whatever their motive was.
Yeah.
The GOP's actual motive is this something we can actually afford right now? Everybody's strapped for cash. Can we afford major spikes of, the cost of energy right now? So it's something we got to tread lightly on. Do you want to put on anything on that, Cal?
Oh, I was just gonna let you run through these major points, and then I figured we would talk about them in depth for each.
Okay, all right. So yeah, next thing I was going to talk about was I thought it was awesome that he was wanting to repeal the Affordable Health Care Act, because he had a big problem, and I think most people do have a big problem with the fact that if you don't have health care insurance, now you get fined for it. So basically, it's just one more tax we've been the American taxpayers have to carry on their backs. And but he's still actually, come to find out, he's still wanting a federally funded healthcare system. So like anybody with major health problems that might not be covered by private companies get covered by the federal system is what I was getting. I didn't get exact details on that. It just, to me, it's kind of sketchy that he's still looking at the federal government to fund one more aspect of our lives.
Right.
So that's definitely an implication.
Yeah.
co-sponsored the Border Security, Economic Opportunity, and Immigration Modernization Act of 2013. As the one that pissed all the Tea Partiers off, apparently. But he's wanting to create a path to citizenship for a lot of the illegal immigrants that are here right now, so that we can make them a more functioning aspect of society. And
Right.
he later came out, he's still on board with that, but now he's wanting to create I guess you would say a wall or some way to keep more illegals from just pouring into the borders. So I think that's reasonable too. Apparently a lot of Tea Partiers aren't a fan of that, but I feel if they're, good members of society, contributing to the cause, if you will, then, what's the harm? So he's wanting to, so far so good, but here's one of the bigger implications, and I even saw a lot of it in the first presidential debate, the GOP debate, where they're just pounding on the war drums. He was right there at the forefront, really. He wants to be a little more active, well, a lot more active, actually, in global presence in regards to Iran, Russia, and North Korea.
Okay. Yeah.
He opposes, another problem I have with him is that he opposes normalizing relationships with Cuba. So if you're a fan of Cuban cigars, you might not be a fan of this guy. He wants to start sanctions on Iran until they discontinue their uranium enrichment. And is actually considering sanctions. He wants to continue sanctions on them, and is looking into military actions if they actually get a hold of nuclear weapons.
Yeah.
Believes radical Islamists are the greatest threat to national security. I think that's arguable. Voted yes on extending the Patriot Act. Now, this is huge. Definitely something I want to discuss here in a minute. I'm just going to run through these real quick, and then we'll go back on it. Supported Syrian opposition, but voted against invading Syria. So that was, it was pretty cool. Yes and no. Very adamant about pro-life, even to the extent of rape and incest. He's absolutely no abortions. Not really big to me, but some of you out there might think that's kind of a big deal.
Right.
States should have the right to define marriage in the traditional way. Was a quote we got from him in regards to same-sex marriage. Also, he's this is going to be huge for a lot of y'all out there. He's against the recreational use of marijuana. Would be willing to look into medicinal purposes. He did oppose the stimulus, so good on him for that. He supports spending caps for the government, so he wants to get spending under control. That's good. He's got a tax to 15% for anyone making less than $75,000, 35% for anybody making more than $75,000 a year, and wants the corporate tax reduced to 25%. Extra tax breaks to minimum wage earning families, and 25% tax credit for 4 weeks paid leave. Any company that will give their employees 4 weeks paid leave, they get a 25% tax credit.
All right. So he's pretty good at putting what he thinks out there. His and it seems to be runs kind of along the party line mostly. There's a little bit. There's some outliers there, but there's no secret of what he thinks anyway.
Yeah.
So you want to bring back up the first point, and we'll start there.
So yeah, we're talking about the shutdown of trying to keep the shutdown of coal power plants.
Okay.
And wanting to begin exporting oil, for allowing us to export oil.
Okay. Yeah. So those two topics are now shutting down coal power plants and exporting oil. Are those two separate topics, or are those one and the same?
It's all the same thing. It's like in regards to the environment, he's wanting to leave the coal power plants open
Yeah.
And he's trying to save them from the EPA shutting those down, and he's trying to allow oil companies to export and drill.
Yeah. So my opinion is those are driven by the same those two topics are driven by the same factor, and that is fracking. The amount of natural gas and oil that has been released from fracking has been exponential, and it's really the one shining star in our economy is all of this very cheap energy that we have now. So in regards to the EPA, yes, they're raising their standards. However, these factories or these coal power plants, they're starting to shut down. Regardless, even before they were shutting down, before the EPA started stepping in with their with their standards, because they slowly raise them. It's not just one giant leap. It's staged, but natural gas is so much cleaner and it's so much cheaper. I know personally in Texas that my mother's electric bill has dropped significantly because Dallas Fort Worth still have coal plants, but they're shutting down. They're replacing with natural gas because all the natural gas that we have, it's cleaner, it's cheaper.
They're always cheaper though. That's a matter of supply and demand kind of thing. It's where you are. I mean, I guess if you're surrounded by it, it'd be cheaper. But yeah, I get what you're saying though. That fracking is definitely an issue, I think.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. And that's the thing too. Right now, the companies aren't paying the correct price for extracting natural gas or oil because they're not paying for the environment that they're affecting. When that comes in, you'll see the price rise. But as of right now, as today, we don't pay for the destruction that we really put into the environment from extracting things from it. So now, as for exporting oil, that's an interesting topic because here in the United States, we're largely becoming independent off oil. One, because of the global slowdown. Okay, people drive less, they go on less driving vacations. Planes are more fuel efficient, cars are more fuel efficient, and we have a glut of oil, and it can't leave the borders. So we need to start, if we start exporting, and mainly we were going to start exporting to Japan, and then we were also going to start exporting to Europe to offset Russia. That was the big key play there. We're going to start sending fuels over to Western Europe to offset Russia.
Right.
We're going to see significant rise in oil prices if we have to compete on a global market for oil, because right now it's subsidized through the fact that we have tariffs where you can't, or embargoes really, where you can export oil. So what do you think about that?
Yeah, I think you pretty much hit the nail on the head with that one. This is one where Marco Rubio actually is on point. I don't see anything wrong with it. I think lifting those restrictions, because it's like you said, fracking is a huge problem we're having right now, where environmental damage is being done. You got, like, to the extent that I've actually seen videos where the guy's like trying to get a glass of water. He smells gas. He's like, "You smell that?" And I don't know why, but what possesses him to do this? But he grabs a lighter, and shoves it under the faucet, and his water like literally catches on fire from the fracking. And it's like, we're so worried about the environment to the point we're destroying our environment, if that even makes sense. It's like we have the opportunity to go offshores and grab this oil, or we can, just cause artificial earthquakes that shift gas into random pockets that basically get dumped out into the land that we live in. It's like, why don't we just grab this stuff right off shores instead of going through this painstaking, expensive, haphazard process of fracking?
Right. Yeah.
So I think he was on point with that.
Yeah. There's really good documentaries out there. Gasland being the best, or my opinion, the best one. It's also been the biggest one on fracking. And people will say, well, there's naturally occurring places in northern New York, or northern upstate New York, where people can still light their gas on or their faucets on fire, and there was never fracking. Okay, yes, earthquakes happen, shifts happen underground. It can happen, but to the large extent, there was none of that under Dallas, Texas, or Western Texas. Now those things are happening, but yeah. So there is some points on that. The exporting of oil actually makes me actually kind of makes a little bit of a split in my libertarian views, laissez-faire free market, because in my mind I'm thinking, oh yeah, let's just have open trade and let's if we can produce cheap oil and there's places around the world that will buy it, let's do it. But then all of a sudden I started thinking about my rising gas prices. And I'm like,
Right.
so there's always and that's when that's when rubber meets the road of, do you really stand for the principle, or do you just stand for principles because they're convenient?
Right.
And with that, I would have to say that, you know what, that's fine. Let's go ahead and export, because one, it's going to give us, it's going to give companies a place to go with this oil and this gas, and it's going to give us a trade. It's going to start building up a trade surplus. Open a lot of jobs. That whole big thing. I think there was two plays to Marco Rubio's thing there, and President Obama's trying to do the same thing, where they want to export oil to key countries because, one, it's going to create jobs, it's going to have tax revenue for it, and it's going to offset key players in other places, mainly Russia and Western Europe. So, and
Right.
as for the EPA. Do I like an unelected official making laws of the land and telling what people can and can't do? No, I don't. However,
I think
I
anybody
really
does.
don't like the fact that I don't know. The coal is very nasty. Okay, there's nothing clean about it. Like, you can't hold it and be clean. You can't stand next to it and be clean. You can't burn it and it's not clean. You take it out of the ground, you can either strip mine it or send people down in these shafts where it collapses on them. There's not. Anyways, yeah. So, what do you think? Yay or nay for Mark Rubio's two stances there?
I'm for it. I support it.
Mm,
100%. I like every aspect of it, really. I don't even think there's. So you might have to pay a little more for gas, but I mean,
yeah.
that's to me. I don't know. I like the whole free market idea. All around, I give them a thumbs up on it.
Yeah. I'm gonna have to say that I really don't care for him to protect coal power plant. I think they're gonna go by the wayside no matter what. Uh,
Right.
I think that solar is becoming more and more efficient every day. Wind is slowly getting there, and then between natural gas. But as for
But I gotta
exporting,
say though, it's not like he's advocating subsidizing for these coal power plants. He's simply
stopping the
ensuring
EPA.
that the EPA doesn't shut them down prematurely. And I too, I think everybody, if we could have solar energy, that's the way we would go. Or wind power, just some renewable resource, cleaner. That's obviously what we want to go for. But if the time's not right,
Mm.
well, then we just got to sit tight for a little while and hope the ball keeps rolling in the direction it does. Capitalism prevails, and we have advancements that are made to where we can have efficient solar power.
I think we're definitely going to get there too. Just the growth of technology and it's just exponential. So I think we're going to get there. What was the next one?
All right, so we had a little where he dabbled a bit in opposing the Affordable Health Care Act. I think we pretty much all support that. Did you want to go much into that? I mean, keep in mind we're trying to keep this brief.
Yeah. I'm not an expert on healthcare, so I'm not going to sit here and make a bunch of comments that I'm not thoroughly educated on what's going on. I see both sides. Does everyone need healthcare? Sure, but you look at the numbers and they're just Medicaid, Medicare. You always end up getting more than what you put in, so it's not like where's this money coming from? They're either printing it or they're taking it from other people as a Ponzi scheme.
Yeah.
And then it also goes to beg the question, well, what type of healthcare? I mean, are we, if you're 80 years old, 70 years old, should we be doing multiple heart transplants and liver transplants because you're a raging alcoholic all your life, or lung transplants because you're a smoker all your life? Quite frankly, I don't want to pay for that because I made the choices not to be a smoker because I know it's unhealthy.
Right.
I don't want to have to pay not only for the subsidies, for the tobacco companies, and then they can lobby congressmen and whatnot, but now I have to pay for your bad decisions. And then you continue to smoke through the hole in your neck that I paid for.
Right. And that's the problem with anything being socialized is the fact that you no longer have a choice in the matter. If you have a company, for example, a health insurance company that covers these irresponsible people, then you have to pay more for it. But the cool thing about it is that you don't really have to pay for it. You can go to another company that doesn't do that. Whereas with government healthcare, you have to pay your taxes. You have to do what they tell you to do, and if you don't, they will dock your pay. They'll take money straight from your paycheck, and if they can't get that, they'll come and arrest you.
Yeah.
They'll use force if necessary to get that money from you. Whereas with a company, with capitalism, you just go to a better company. So
right.
Being opposed to Affordable Health Care Act, that's another thumbs up from me.
Right. I would like to see what he would do with it because I don't know. Everyone
He is talking about repeal. He isn't talking about completely demolishing it. So if he repeals it into more nationalized health care, that could be a problem.
Right. I'm gonna have to say that I'm gonna have to say I really don't really know about the extent of the national health care. People make bad decisions. Look at the 3 top leading causes of death in this country, and they're to more extent they're avoidable if you live a healthy lifestyle. So, anyways, yeah, I'd like to see something. I'd like to see it repealed. And I'd like to see more open market, trading insurance across state lines, more private insurance funds that you can start investing to yourself. I'd like to see more patient-to-doctor interactions because right now we have a third-party system where I go to the doctor, he gives me what I need, and then the insurance companies duke it out, and I never see it, and I never have a say in it, and the doctor can kind of charge whatever he wants. It's a little bit of a racket. But yeah. Anyways, I want to get us out of this dark hole.
Yeah, so the next thing was a whole amnesty act that apparently had a bunch of Tea Partiers panties in a wad.
Oh yeah. This
Marco Rubio wanting the illegals to come in and take everyone's jobs, apparently.
Yeah. I think there was a dual play with that one. So one, I think the smaller effect was the Republican Party was trying to show face with the illegal immigrants, right? With the criminals that came here. They were trying to show face so that way their kids would consider voting for a Republican, which is absolutely ridiculous to think that they're going to switch their political views on someone that's constantly rewarding them for breaking the law. It's
right.
ridiculous. But 2, that amnesty bill was funded by very big business. It was funded by It was funded by large agriculture companies. It was funded by large construction companies because of the whole thing. Though they took our jobs, it is true. They do take jobs, but here's the thing: they also keep everyone's pay down. There's so much cheap labor around. No one can get a pay raise. Everyone says, "Well, they're doing jobs that people don't want to do." Well, that might be true, but what they're actually doing is keeping everyone else's wages down by giving out their labor for so cheap. And two, they're also keeping a lot of industries from being um, made by machines. Like picking oranges and stuff. They have machines that can pick oranges, and all they need is a one operator. Or
Right.
a lot of things becoming industrialized, like truly industrialized and truly ran by machines. They're keeping it down, and the unions, and the perfect example was the car unions. They tried forever to keep the automation of the car industry out, but finally they just
Mhm.
simply lost because the automation got so good
Right.
that a lot of people lost jobs. There's a lot of welders that lost jobs. There's a lot of people that painted the cars that lost jobs because the machines are so effective, and all you have to do is pay someone to maintain the machines. It's a one-time investment. Machines don't go on strike. They don't need health care. There's a lot of things that machines don't need. And then people say,
Mm.
oh, well, what is everyone going to do? Well, that's the point. This is where this is where human society can take the next step, is where we stop doing these things like picking oranges, and we start really using our minds instead of our backs. And if everyone's cognitive thinking goes up, it's better for the whole world.
Right.
And
And
then
getting
yeah,
back on topic too, the having illegal immigrants in here to do the jobs that nobody wants to do, as you put it. That means like things that you got to think about too is if they're getting it done a lot cheaper, that means that people are buying products for a lot cheaper. People are seeing savings and they can devote their labors elsewhere. So all the strenuous construction and any of these construction and agriculture, a lot of those jobs right now require labor, and eventually we'll get to the point where we'll have machines to take that over. Eventually, machines are going to take a lot of that over, as you said. And
they're
the
just
thing
slowing down the
is
process.
a transition is going to be made where we're going to find jobs elsewhere where the human touch is going to be a little more effective,
Yeah.
and products will be cheaper because of that too. Like cars were once unaffordable, but now everybody has one, sometimes two. So
Uh, yeah, and to piggyback off that, it's like, okay, so what you're saying is they want to do jobs that no one else wants to do for a really low price. That's not very respectful. Like, that's not very respectful to that person. I mean, like, what do you think? Like, okay, so they're gonna go do pretty much the only times they can do something is when either a machine should be doing it or no one else wants to do it. So have at it. It's a little low to think about respect in that sense. If you get what I'm trying to say about the
yeah,
respect
no,
of that
I get that.
individual, paying them such a low price with such a bad job, and then that's it, and that's your stance for illegal immigrants is, well, we can treat them like shit. It's fine. And really, that's in result, that's what people are saying when they say, well, they're going to do jobs that no one else wants to do. No, that's not true. People do want to do that job, but for a certain price. And when people cross international borders illegally and they're standing there and they're taking people's jobs, they're actually doing us a lot of harm, but they're doing themselves harms by working for so cheap.
Right. So, I don't know. In general, I think his whole immigration policy. Normally I'm in line with the Tea Party. Normally, this is one of those instances where I think granting amnesty to the illegals and then having a better vetting process for the rest. I'm not strongly opinionated on it, but I do think I don't see the harm in it. I see more good in it than I see harm, and I got to give him a thumbs up on that one.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to give him a harsh thumbs down. Uh, I don't really, I really don't. The more and more I read about it, and the more and more I find out about it, it's really enlightening how bad illegal immigration is, and how much they really do cost the economy. Um, and as you were saying about, it makes cheaper food for everyone. there's a lot of information out there that, I mean, you're talking about if you pay someone $10 an hour, $15 an hour, even $20 an hour, you're talking about your head of lettuce going up by 4 to 5 cents. Paying someone $18 an hour, you're talking about your lettuce right now that you bought for, let's say, $2, you're talking about it going up by 6 cents.
Right.
I'd be more than willing to pay 6 more cents for a head of lettuce.
Yeah.
And people will work at that rate. People will not break their back all day for $10 an hour, especially if there's a welfare state to support them for not doing anything.
Right.
But I would have to say I'm not in favor of amnesty. I believe we do need a strong border, and it's also an exportation problem where countries export their problems. They export their poverty, their criminals. These people, a lot of people, okay, yeah, they're coming for a better life, but why should I have to pay for it?
All right, so I got to say though, from Mexico, for the most part, people are coming here for opportunity. In a good sense, I think this whole thing about drugs and violence and rape is kind of being blown out of proportion. Obviously, it's impacting the border states a little more than elsewhere, but I will say, I believe the one big problem right now with why there would be any violence, because think about it, for the most part, when you think about an illegal immigrant, what do you think of? You think of like a construction worker or someone farming or someone running a restaurant. You don't really think of like drug cartel. However, there is, by the border, that's usually where you run into the most violence. All these problems that you hear them talking about is usually drug related, which is actually where I find Marco Rubio kind of conflicted on. Is he's all about granting amnesty to illegals, and he's trying to keep control on the flow on the border, and he's worried about the violence, I'm sure, as most people are on the border, but yet he wants to keep Mexico as a huge provider of an illegal substance. He's basically keeping these drug cartels in business by wanting to keep marijuana illegal on a federal level.
Yeah, his views are conflicting. They're working together.
What's up?
Yeah, you're right. His views are conflicting. They work against each other.
Yeah. It's just like we saw with Al Capone and the ban on alcohol, and he attributed his success to the ban, just as the Mexican drug cartels attribute their success to the lack of competition in America.
Right. And they've actually seen their profit. There's some really good articles out there on profits falling from Mexico because of the Western states opening up their marijuana market. So those markets have dried up for Mexican cartels. And if you look at their position, even trafficking through those states is really unprofitable. And what it's now, it's instead of going up through California, everything now it's just flooding in through Texas, because they don't really. You're not going to find legal marijuana in Texas anytime soon, but as far as someone coming over here working hard, great. But if you look at the numbers, 62% of illegal households are on welfare. They've paid nothing into it. They're taking a lot out of it: cash, subsidies, or cash payments, food payments, public housing, compared to only about 30% for a native United States American.
You would have just hamstringed your whole speech there with that little slip up.
Yeah. But actually, so it's, I don't know. It's, people say they come over here and work hard. Yeah, sure they do, but they haven't paid anything to assist them, and right when they show up, they're getting all these subsidies and welfare, and it's really putting a strain on the system. It's making it. You can look at the individual too. You don't have to look at the household. You can look at the individual. But however, people get welfare through household numbers, and everyone in the house benefits from people on welfare. And illegal immigrants aren't known for filling out tax forms. So it's not like you're paying into it. But that's I have to say, anything to do with amnesty is it just completely turns me off to anybody that has to say, well, yeah, they broke the law. Okay, well, we'll give them amnesty. We'll give them citizenship, the right to vote, and hopefully they vote for us. Because that's pretty much, it comes down to that and big business wanting really cheap labor.
Right.
And if you look at the different types of visas that they give out, I'll put a link down into to the video. But you got the H-1B visas, right? There's temporary H-2B, H-2A. There's all kinds of special visas that people can get. Well, they're beholden to the company that they get these visas through. They can't quit, because if they quit, they lose their visa and get deported. What does that do? It makes for a very bad situation for this immigrant worker. They can't quit because they're going to get deported, so they never get raises. They're overworked. They're abused by their employers. And these visas were just specifically set up for large agriculture companies, construction companies, anything that wants cheap manual labor.
Right.
Big holes, fill them back in. So.
All right.
Yeah.
So that being said, I guess like I said, I still got to leave it at a slight thumbs up from me on that one. A huge, I would say even maybe a double thumbs down from Mr. Kyle Mason. Maybe even a goat. Might even give it the goat.
What's the goat?
Well, if anybody watches, what is it, Servers or whatever the hell that meant, Waiters.
Oh, the goat. The goat. Okay. Yeah, I'm gonna have to say very weak.
I think thumbs down all around on the whole criminalizing marijuana. I think we're at a point now that doesn't even need to be discussed with the majority of America. We all understand that everybody's okay with it.
Yeah, it's
so out of touch on that one.
It's a sick joke too, because even during the presidential debates, the host will say something like, well, we're going to get to a topic that or marijuana, which I think everyone in this room has smoked, and then everyone in the room started laughing and clapping. And it's complete hypocrisy how everyone in the room's laughing and clapping, but then we imprison people for a very long time for doing nonviolent crimes. It's like, why is that funny if you're going to ruin people's lives and throw them? It's a losing battle too. It turns off a lot of people to take that stance, because a lot of people see the stupidity in it. And slowly but surely, these states are going to keep legalizing it, and they're not going to let the DEA come in and enforce those rules.
Right.
So, it's.
I don't really think it needs much more talk. And I think anyone that's listening right now, I guarantee you more than 9 out of 10 of our viewers will be understand how shitty it is that he's against that. And like you said, hypocritical.
Yeah, very hypocritical.
Hypocrisy is like the worst trait in any candidate, period.
Yeah.
But moving on, though, one of my bigger problems, this is where I started running into some muck with this guy, Marco Rubio. He apparently wants to get more involved with, Iran, Russia, and North Korea. Feels like we aren't giving them enough pushback right now.
I don't even know what to say to that statement. We have aircraft carriers parked off all these shores. We're in trade agreements. We got our state Secretary of States over at Iran anyway. North Korea, you can't really talk to North Korea that much.
But what are they going to do? I mean, they even tested their ICBMs, your intercontinental ballistic missiles.
Yeah.
The closest they can get they keep talking, North Korea is going to nuke us one day.
Yeah.
And yet I think their record so far is 20 miles off their shore. It's a long ways away from America. They're not a threat. Same with Iran. They have no capabilities of nuking us right now. And if you think that Iran and North Korea and Russia are our greatest threats right now, you have no clue what's going on right now. Just to be completely blunt, you have no idea what's going on in this world right now. I mean, just take a look at the economics alone.
Yeah.
Is beyond any nuclear bombshell in production right now. Guaranteed.
Yeah, it's good for the military industrial complex anyway to obviously a strong national defense is key to any country, but when you're sitting there. Obviously it's a big concern for South Korea and Japan. But again, that's why we are developing so quickly and very effectively too our Aegis missiles platforms. Every year we're getting better and better at shooting down a lot of missiles in the air all at once. So as time progresses, we're going to start seeing these threats disappear more and more. I mean, if you look at Iron Dome over Israel right now, they shoot down a vast number of missiles incoming into their country through Iron Dome.
Okay, and understand too, anyone listening right now, understand too, is that includes like if any nuclear missiles were to, I guess you'd say, penetrate the Iron Dome, come within proximity of the Iron Dome, those would be shot down. And the thing is when you shoot down nuclear missiles, that means they're destroyed before they can actually detonate. They actually have to have a specific detonation to enact a nuclear explosion. So for the most part, they're safe from any nuclear missile that could somehow find its way into their skies.
Right, and that's a big pushback for Russia. Obviously, they don't want nuclear missiles, in Estonia or in Lithuania, very close to St. Petersburg. But one thing they really are against is the anti-missile systems getting closer, like in Poland or Ukraine or Turkey. They don't like that because they're understanding too that our mad mutually assured destruction is becoming less and less effective because pretty much one side can just wait for someone to shoot their missiles and we can shoot them down. I'm sure there's going to get ones that get through.
Okay. Yeah, that's a damn good point.
And then it's like, okay, well, you blew your load. Now what? Now what do you want to talk about? So the existential threat of these it's a lot of propaganda, fear mongering. People like a common enemy. It's good for the military industrial complex to keep supplying these neighbors of these countries weapons. We can use it as an excuse to build up more weapons. It's fear mongering. It really is. We're critical for saying that we can be in Syria, but Russia can't, even though in proximity Russia is much closer. Absolutely much closer.
Yeah, and then on top of that, with Greece, Greece was wanting another bailout from the European Union, and they said, "Fuck off! You've already had your share." Fair enough. But then Russia said, "Hey, we'll bail you out, but we want some military bases in your country." And then all of a sudden, we start flailing our arms like, "No way, man!"
Yeah.
So, there's hypocrisy there. Just as you said, are we the world police? Is there really American exceptionalism where we're the only good guys? We could do no wrong, so we should be able to go wherever we want. Everyone else be damned.
Yeah, you know how I feel about that.
And only we are allowed to destroy ISIS. Russia, you stay away. You're doing it wrong. You're killing them too fast.
You think about this.
You're gonna write history books here, and you're just wanting to get it knocked out in a paragraph, you assholes.
You think about this. If there's only so many targets, and if Russia's taken half of them, where is the military-industrial complex going to put the other half of their bombs? How is that going to work? We want all the destruction for ourselves, and we also want to put our men and women in danger and no boots on the ground, but you know what? We'll put special forces on the ground because they don't wear boots. They go barefoot. And
apparently.
I don't know.
They were never there.
Yeah, anyways, big thumbs down for it's same as Bush, same as Obama.
Yeah.
It's
like Rand Paul was saying, if you want another George Bush, elect that asshole.
Yeah, yeah. Next.
But yeah, big thumbs down. So
why don't we talk about this guy? Because he's just anyways, keep going.
Well, I'm saying, he's got some good aspects to him. It's just foreign policies, it's an abomination. So, for example, he did support Oh wait, no, this is bad too. Actually,
Okay, all right, just okay,
he
whatever.
supported the us supporting the Syrian opposition, which was turned out to be ISIS, I guess. You remember you were talking about throwing the guns out the back of the Toyota Tacomas, or throwing them into the bed with the terrorists, or the ISIS. But yeah, so he voted. He voted for supporting the Syrian opposition. Oh, here's a good aspect though. He did vote against a full-on invasion of Syria though. That's what I was gonna get
Yeah.
at. You know?
So
He's cool with proxy wars, just full-fledged wars, no sir.
yeah, I mean, if anybody, if you look at the people that we've supported in the past, small Islamic groups in the past, and what they've become today, like the Mujahideen, has became the Taliban,
Qaeda.
and then kind of harbored Al Qaeda a little bit in their area, and they were the worst people in the world. Well, look where they started. I mean, we were funding them against the Russians, and now we want to take. And you know what? We've already had programs where we've tracked these guns. They've already fallen in the hands of not any group over there. By the way, just to begin, is not pro-Western at all. It's again, it is against everything they believe and see in their world is not pro-Russian. Absolutely not, or pro-Russian,
Program.
pro-American, pro-Western, anything at all. So to support these people and millions of dollars, $500 million was the Pentagon's program, and they didn't get anywhere with it except flying C-130s over the area and dropping tons of ammunition and weapons. And there's videos out right now where is the Islamic State got a hold of them, just directly to the Islamic State, not through a proxy. Oh, these guys are good guys, but then at night they're like, shipping it somewhere else. It was directly caught by ISIS, and yeah, it's
Here's the sketchy shit, man. Is they're telling us, remember 9/11, except with Al Qaeda, in which case sometimes you have to team up with evil to defeat a greater evil. It's like Cartman whenever he was the Coon, and he teamed up with Cthulhu, and it's like sometimes you have to team up with, and they're like, no, dude, he is pure evil. What are you doing?
yeah.
Anytime you have to team up with evil, you have to really reconsider like what side you're on. Like, what is your objective?
Yeah.
Do the ends in this situation justify the means?
Yeah, and talking about 9/11 really gets people heated, and they don't really want to hear facts. But look at where these people came from. They came from Saudi Arabia. Just saying, and those are one of our great allies.
Yeah.
Why are they our great allies? Because they have a lot of oil, and we set their country up, and we put the Saudis in power, and now they're in power forever, and they're beholden to us, and they keep oil cheap, so Russia can't make a profit on their oil. And they've come out and said that they said that they're going to keep prices low, so Russia cannot be a major exporter, and they can't make a turn of profit directly at
That's economic warfare.
Yeah, and obviously they're doing it for us. It doesn't help them to keep it low, but they can make a profit off $2 barrel oil. So, and Russia can't because they don't have advanced fields like that the Saudis have. But yeah, thumbs down, Mark Rubio.
Foreign policies, yeah, you suck.
Yeah, you're not gonna have my children fight your wars or any
Yeah,
other
absolutely
wars.
right. We're us, preferably.
Yeah.
All right, so yeah, foreign policies is where he definitely disappoints. As a lot of GOP, that's typical with GOP. I mean, you just watch the debate, and all but one of them really stands out. Every single one of them is definitely pounding on those war drums, like I said, other than Rand, obviously.
Yeah. Even on the other side too, really.
What's up?
Even on the other side, war drums.
Yeah, actually.
It's profitable, and their kids don't go, and they don't go, obviously. So it's just really easy to be like, those people are evil, and well, let's just kill them.
Right.
Oh, come on. Anyways. All right. Don't get me too fired up. Let's talk about something else.
Yeah, so let's bring it back from abroad and back home. I wanted to talk a little more about this is my big problem with Cruz. Now my big problem with Rubio. I did not know he was for this until I did the research, and apparently he actually supported and voted in favor of extending the roaming tap for the Patriot Act. He was basically wanting to extend the Patriot Act. Patriot Act was supposed to be cut off. That was signed into place by George Bush. It was supposed to be cut off like a few months ago, right around the time that it was actually the same bill that Rand Paul was standing filibustering, trying to get rid of the Patriot Act.
Yeah.
And you had Marco Rubio saying that we need the Patriot Act.
Yeah, every single one of them takes a really weak stance. And here's the thing that I don't understand. If the Patriot Act is so good, and it's such an important it's such an important document that really gives the government the power to go after these people, why don't they ever flaunt what they've done? Like, why don't they ever say, oh, look, we caught this person through these steps of the Patriot Act? They never come out and say, I don't know, they're champions of this bill, but then they don't want to come out and talk about how great it is. They just talk about how it's a necessity. Okay, well, if it's a necessity, then why don't you show us the outcome? And if it is a necessity and it is such a great bill, then why are these people continuously falling through the cracks when it's like after these shootings or stabbings or bombings, the government comes out and like, yep, we had detailed files that they were talking to the Islamic State or people wherever. They were planning on doing this and they were doing that, and they were researching on their laptop how to make pipe bombs and stuff, or pressure cooker bombs. It's like, okay, either it's working or it's not. And if it is, please show us some evidence of it working. Because if not, then why are you doing this?
Yeah, I hear oftentimes too a lot of people saying, well, if you aren't doing anything wrong, then
nothing to worry about.
Yeah, why would you worry about it? But it's like with the whole George Orwell's 1984. Like he basically foresaw a lot of what's going on now.
Yeah.
TV in every living room, camera in every living room. Here you have the Xbox One now with the cameras, and no conspiracy here, but the NSA does have the ability to access those cameras and look right into your living room. They have the ability to tap into our feed right now. Even if we weren't putting it up on YouTube, they could tap into what other people couldn't.
Yep.
And just keep in mind that, like, what is legal now will not always be legal. There's certain things at some point where you believe that they should be legal, but the government won't share your sentiment. They'll just lock you away. So whenever you have your guns sitting off in the background, if you ever to walk past your camera and they were to see that and have it recorded, well, they could get into your house. I don't even know if they'd need a warrant at this point. But what I'm saying is, like, evidence could be gathered for crimes. Right. Yeah. It may not be something you're worried about committing right now, but later on down the road, even so much as thought of, is this government getting out of control? Even that, the mere thought of that could be considered illegal.
Yeah.
A thought crime, if you will.
Yeah, it's totally, yeah. I mean, yeah, you're incriminating yourself. A lot of things you do, because, look, think about this. Let's just say Marco Rubio got in charge and he's the nicest guy in the world and he's charged of the Patriot Act and we're doing, he's doing these things. Okay, well, if he was president, he should only be president for 8 years, right? Who's going to replace him? Just think about any power that you ever want to give to the government, and then think about the most evil person or can think of, and give that power to them. And what's the outcome?
Yeah.
That's the outcome. If you don't like that picture, then you shouldn't hand down that power, because government is a revolving door. People coming in, people going out, and as time has been progressing, more and more evil people have been coming in. Okay, it's very it's very scary, and just like you said, they can look at your nudes, they can look at us on Skyping, private chat, whatever, right in your Xbox. And think about the people that work in the NSA. There has got to be some creepers there. Yes. There.
No, there has been. There's been some exposed that actually have saved it on their computers.
Yeah.
And I wanted to say too, for all those people that say if you don't do anything wrong, then what's to be afraid of? If you've ever even so much as illegally downloaded music, for example,
You have done something
if you've
wrong.
ever pirated, do you know that on average, I think they said Americans commit about 2 felonies a day on average.
Yeah.
I guess they took into account the fact that, you go and download like 150 songs.
That's a felony. Yeah. It's jail time.
Bam.
Yeah. And
So
that's
just keep that in mind.
That's the thing. You make enough laws and they're diluted enough and you can manipulate it enough, you can hold anybody accountable for anything. And I mean, as of right now, you look at they stretch it towards actual criminals. They can't put anything on. Mostly it becomes tax evasion. They come into your home. They come into these people's homes and, well, how'd you afford this? How'd you afford that? How'd you afford that? And like, oh, so you had money that you didn't file a claim on. They arrest them. So that's one, and these are criminals that they're doing this to. They're also seizing assets from law-abiding citizens. But progression, bureaucracy never gets smaller. It's only progress. You're gonna have more rules. They're gonna state more laws. Yeah, that's just one more reason why I'm not voting for Marco Rubio.
Yeah, that was basically the nail in the coffin for me. Yeah, big thumbs down on that one.
Yeah.
Moving on though, here's another one. One that I don't really take interest in. I just think some of our viewers might. But his opinion on the whole gay marriage situation.
Okay.
And he was saying that which he already alludes to the fact that he thinks that marriage should only be in the established traditional sense. He says states should have the right to define marriage in the traditional way. So it's like states should have the right as long as it fits my view. But the bigger problem I have, period, and you ask any other libertarian, is that the government shouldn't decide what marriage is. I mean, that's the whole point of separation of church and state. Marriage is a religious thing. And if a certain religion believes that they, can conduct a wedding with a man and a horse, for fuck's sake, well, so be it. But the government should have no say over this. It's just totally out.
It's yeah, I think you're right. He's actually he's doing two things. One, he's avoiding the question, right? He's saying, well, personally, I think this, but let's just leave that to the states. And I think that's like one of those things that, again, it's his view because it's convenient, right? It's convenient for him to not take a really hard stance, which is fine because I don't want him to take a hard stance. But I just want to point out the fact that he is being a constitutionalist, he's being a libertarian because it's convenient for him. He's not a conservative. He's
and
not.
That's the thing too. He's coming off as a pseudo-libertarian. He's like, I'm libertarian because I think states' rights, but
yeah, because he doesn't want to alienate more voters. So that's why he's saying that. I do believe that the state, or I don't even think the state at all should be involved in marriage. The only reason they are, and it's a big deal, is because the IRS and taxes. Okay, that's the main reason, and then everyone else, and then a lot of people have a deep religious feeling that they need to butt their head into other people's lives for some reason. But yeah, he's been a conservative libertarian because it suits his need. So
well,
very weak constitution on his part.
Thumbs down on that one too. I didn't get too much information. I was actually kind of hoping you'd be able to throw in on this one. Do you know his gun policies at all?
I've never heard him talk about gun policies.
We got to look into that a little more, but apparently NRA gave him a B+, which if I had to guess with them, that's like to say that he's pretty cool with the idea of guns, just not fully automatic. That's about all I can take away from that. I got to look more into that.
I'm going to give you a heads up.
He can't be too damn bad, I guess.
Yeah, I'm going to give you a heads up. I'm not going to do any research to his gun policies because he's given me enough reason not to.
That's a valid point. I might follow you on.
You could go buy any gun you want, which whatever. I don't personally don't need a machine gun or a 50 cal sniper rifle, but if that's what you want to do, just don't aim it at my house. That's not going to change my opinion on this guy. So,
all right, and for the last thing, I don't want to get necessarily into the specifics of his tax policies, but so for the most part, he's just trying to simplify it. He's talking about a bunch of tax cuts, basically, for everybody.
Yeah.
And, all right, so let me look over on paper. Talking about tax cuts.
Yeah, that's good.
But and people are like, well, how are you gonna pay for all the government if you're complaining about this debt? How are you gonna pay for the government with all these tax cuts?
Yep. And he
that's a valid question, but his and I don't know if it's his response, but I can respond to that one just with common sense. Is you reduce taxes, it's basic economics 101, that you increase your tax base. You make your companies where they can spend more money, your people spend more money, ultimately more tax revenues taken in.
Yeah.
And then on top of that, it's like Rand Paul said, you're missing the whole point, is we're trying to cut back on spending.
Yeah, but more specifically, the size of government, the intrusiveness of government.
Right.
That's how when I hear a tax policy, this is what I think. They talk about percentages, and in my mind, I'm thinking, okay, so if you say 20%, that means you're going to be somewhere around 20% intrusive in my life. If someone says 50%, I'm like, so you're going to be intrusive half my life. That's how I see a tax rate, right? And there's other, okay, so do I have to fill out tons of paperwork to get to that percentage? Or is it just a consumption? So if I choose not to buy a bunch of stuff, because I don't buy a bunch of stuff, I don't buy just stupid items, right? And I always look for used and whatever. Anyways, how about I just a consumption tax and I just pay it at the register? You collect it from the company. Why do I have to tell you everything that I bought and then beg for subsidies that large corporations lobbied you to put in there? So, and I think he's beating around the bush on, oh well, we would do this, and then the economics, it'll grow and all. Like, why don't you just come out and say what I feel that what he wants to say, but he can't say it because everyone just starts fear mongering it. We're gonna reduce the size of government. They're like, oh, so you're gonna cut Social Security and old people are gonna freeze to death in their house. Well, no, actually, I'm trying to pass a bill that has to do with people that are age 35 and 40 right now. No, but it's people right now, they're going to freeze to death. So they're afraid to make a really strong stance on raising age limit, means testing, all these things that have to do with the largest programs, which is defense and then Social Security, Medicaid, Medicare. They're afraid to take a stance because there's so much involved. And that's just another reason why I'm not really fond of this guy, because he doesn't take hard stances. I feel like after everything he says, he ends it with, but there's room for negotiation.
Right. Yeah.
So.
Yeah. Well, so for the tax policies, I got to give him a thumbs up on the tax policy, though. Yeah,
sure. I mean, it looks legit. It's less than I'm going to be paying now. It looks like it's going to be a lot easier for people. It's going to really downsize the size of the IRS, which is nothing more than the muscle of the government. I like to think of them as a goon squad. Like, you have to fill out your paperwork correctly and then send them money. And if you don't fill out your paperwork, they throw it back at you and then also slap you with a little bit of a fine. And then they say, well, we'll be by your house soon enough to pick it up. So
it's necessary.
We can make house calls if necessary, whatever your choice, but we charge extra for that, and
right,
and prison time.
So I gotta say, to wrap it all up, if I had to give him a letter grade, I would give him a C.
Yeah. They say D in college stands for degree, but I'm not even going to give this guy a degree. I can't because
F plus at least.
What?
F plus at least.
Oh, F plus. There's just so much hypocrisy. Like if you looked at this as him writing a paper, there's so much misspelling and nothing seems to jive correctly, like his drug policy and then his immigration policy.
All right, real quick, man. You gotta save that F, just not to give away our future episodes. You gotta save that F for our other candidates. Keep our other.
Man, they can all. Hey, man. I got. My pen has a lot of ink in it. I can give them Fs. I can give them all. I don't agree fundamentally with this guy, and I don't agree with the with how all of his policies form together to make an actual vision. It's like us going to war with a country. Would we go to war with somebody, but then still openly trade with them and meet them at openly trade with them, send them aid? No, we're not going to do that. It's weak. You have to have a coherent policy, foreign, domestic, international trade, everything. It has to jive. It all has to jive. It all has to make sense, because if not, you're sending you're sending mixed signals, and it just becomes yeah, and he just ends up becoming. He just became for sale. That's all.
Right.
You can follow those policies, each of his policies to the money. Drug policy, okay, prison industrial complex, intervention in other countries, a military industrial complex, healthcare. Right. There's large insurance companies that want him to do what he's doing. It just immigration. There's large companies that want very cheap labor, and they want to keep labor very cheap. And with 1/3 of Mexico living in America now, that's going to happen very cheap. So,
I guess to sum it up, though, I give him a C. I guess apparently you give him an F minus.
How about this? How about I'm just not ever considering voting for him? Is that better?
Well, just letter grades are neat.
Okay, all right.
At least you can compare that to other candidates. So we know. Would you vote for him, or would you vote for Chafee?
Yeah. Well, I mean, I can compare him to a donkey. Obviously, I'm going to vote for him other than the donkey. But I'll give him an F. I really don't. I'm just not fond of this person. If I'm not fond of a restaurant, I don't go back.
Right.
Yeah. So
there you go.
I really enjoyed this the conversation, getting in depth on each politician, each candidate. It lets us talk about it. Again, this is a property of both Braxton Smith and Kyle Mason. So if you see it on either feed, that's good. Go ahead and share your thoughts below. I would really love to hear some diehard Marco Rubio fans. Yeah. You got anything to add before we?
That's it, man.
All right. Well, thank you very much.